Okay, good evening. Welcome to the Finance Committee meeting. This is March 1st, 2023. This open meeting of the Town of Auburn Finance Committee is being conducted both in person and remotely, consistent with Chapter 107 of the Acts of 2022, which suspends the requirement of the open meeting law to have all meetings in a publicly accessible physical location. Further, all members of public bodies are allowed to participate remotely as long as reasonable public access is afforded so that the public can follow along with the deliberation of the meeting. For the public to join the meeting remotely by telephone, 1-786-535-3211 and access code 991-599-357. Or the public can join via computer at global.gotomeeting.com, join 991-599-357. All supporting materials that have been provided to members of this body are available on the town's website. The public is encouraged to follow along with using the posted agenda. Please note that this meeting is being
This conference will now be recorded.
Please note that this meeting is being recorded by the Auburn Cable Television. Permit me to confirm that all members and persons anticipated on the agenda participating remotely are present and can hear me. Members, when I call your name, please respond in the affirmative. Kevin Kennedy.
Here.
Ed Coleman.
Here.
Trevor Sansucci.
Here.
Okay, here. Michael Marshall.
Present.
Diane Byrne.
Here.
And town officials and employees participating, when I call your name, please respond in the affirmative. CFO was, town manager, Ed Kazanovich.
Here.
And administrative assistant, Sharon Kwiatkowski.
Here.
Okay, also please note that each vote taken in this meeting will be conducted by roll call vote. All right, today on the agenda, we're going to look at an overview of the fiscal year 2024 budgets. We're going to vote on transfer requests, talk about minutes if there are any, and then adjourn. Let's change the agenda, and rather than going to the budgets first, let's vote on the transfer requests that we have in our packet. There's just one this evening. This is a request for an intra-departmental transfer from the DDIS, Economic Development and Energy Management. The transfer is going to come from the Economic Development and Energy Management salary, which has a present balance of $9,428.56. The amount requested is $2,900 going to planner salary. Reason for the transfer: to cover the cost of salary adjustment. Do we have any questions? Perhaps you should, Mrs. Coyle, come up and tell us about this transfer.
Hi, good evening.
Good evening.
Thank you for the opportunity to speak. So for this adjustment request, the department, we have had some newer positions, new people that have been added, and as part of that, we have some responsibilities that we are trying to balance out in the department. For the staff, for the planner salary, is part of the management, and speaking with the town manager, we have looked at comparable salaries from salary study that has been looked at, and that salary has been on the lower side over the past several years. Your committee has been very supportive for us to try to bring some of these salaries up, and this is an effort to do that. That's the request before you.
Okay, thank you very much. Any questions?
Madam Chair, if I could just add to that. As part of the consideration for this increase, we also assigned some additional duties and responsibilities to the position. Okay. We have an energy manager, She does a great job, Economic Development Director and Energy Manager. We had no backup on the Energy Manager side. I'm happy to say that Brooke, our Economic Development Coordinator and Energy Manager, will be having a baby in about 3 weeks.
Yes.
2 to 3 weeks. She's going to be out for a period of time. So it underscores the importance of having a backup energy manager as well. She recently was put into that position maybe a year.
It's just literally coming up upon a year.
And so our intent was to always assign a energy manager just to layer it, to have someone back up.
Okay. All right, so the planner will be the backup? Okay, gotcha. All right. Any questions? No?
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second to approve. All in favor? Kevin?
Yes.
Ed?
Yes.
Mike?
Yes.
Diane?
Yes.
And Trevor?
Yes.
Okay, all set. And the chair votes yes.
Thank you so
All right,
much.
Thank you so much, Mrs. Coyle. All right, so now we're looking at the budget. We don't have any minutes to look at. We're going to look at the budget. We can look at, we're going to be having department heads come in, but tonight we're going to look at some of the basic departments. We'll start with moderator. As,
Madam Chair, can I give you a brief
yes,
update?
yes, please, go
Before
ahead.
we get started
Yep.
into addressing some of the smaller departments. So the budget recommendation for FY '24 that's been submitted to you this evening is requesting a total appropriation of $79,407,909.31. That's about a $911,433 increase over current fiscal year. That's up 1.16%. I must tell you that the budget you have does not currently include an accurate recommendation for 2 departments. One, Bay Path. For the same reasons that we delayed the budget, they're delaying their notification of FY '24 assessments because they haven't submitted their budget to their school committee yet. Although I've had conversations with this business manager late last week, actually, it may have been Monday morning, given the fact that we received our state aid numbers on Thursday, what was the expectation based upon the first release of numbers? I will not share that assessment with you because they didn't want me to release it before I went to their school committee. But what I can tell you is our estimate is greater than what the assessment preliminary number is. So that's good news. In terms of trash, our 3-year contract is expiring in June. We are seeking a renewal for a 1-year and a 3-year option. Actually, a 3-year option, 1 year in 1-year increments. So it gives us the ability to renew it in years 2 and 3. I can tell you the market has drastically changed, and what we're seeing is not kind to the budget. But this is, I mean, given what they're facing with recycling costs, with fuel costs, those costs are going to go up. So we're hoping by the end of this week, hopefully to come to terms with the numbers that we received. Darlene and I will be meeting with the firm that's provided those numbers, and hopefully we can come in the next week or 2 with a budget request. We were able to get the budget to you and to the Board of Selectmen as a result of receiving state aid numbers on Thursday. That was the 23rd. The numbers that we received were favorable for Auburn. I can tell you that early on, not knowing with a new administration and no prior history what that recommendation was going to be. But we estimated a 1.5% increase overall. We're getting a 6% increase overall. And that increase is going to result in a budget unobligated amount of roughly a little over $1 million that's unobligated at this point in time. Also on the revenue side, the level of taxation based upon the request would utilize 310,000 out of a potential 1.317 million that we're allowed to add to the levy. That would be a utilization of just over 0.5% out of 2.5. So 0.59 out of an allowable 2.5%. Given that, on the expense side, I can tell you capital costs are up about $215,000 over what was estimated last year, only because of increased cost of vehicles and other capital items. And everyone is seeing that. We all know the cost, the outrageous cost and increase in vehicles. And not only that, not only the cost, but it's impacted our delivery times as well, drastically. So some vehicles, we can't get, like six-wheel dumps, it's gonna be over 2 years, maybe 3 years to get those vehicles. So we're trying to accelerate those purchases, knowing that there's a lag time. I can tell you our utility costs are up, fuel, motor vehicle parts and supplies are up, snow and ice is up, especially in the area of salt and calcium. I think I conveyed to the Finance Committee that IT costs are up, just to maintain status quo, it's up over $50,000. That has been indexed in the budget. Our special ed cost on the school side is up 14% over current year. And we are requesting the one-time use of sped reserve of $100,000 at this time to cover those unanticipated expenses. Please keep in mind, we do have consideration for that additional $1 million. We may revisit that and not dip into our reserve. I can tell you that a number of requests were not met in the budget. Specifically, 4 firefighters were requested. I did not make that recommendation at this point. 1.5 patrol, 2 patrolmen's positions were requested. We funded 1 with a start date of January 1. So 1.5 are not funded. And there was a clerk's position requested on the town side that we did not recommend. So with that, revenue over expense, I can tell you our revenue, and this is updated in the summary. We have total revenue of $80,414,206.05 using the governor's release numbers, with appropriations of $79,407,901.31. That would tax at a level of 0.59%. So it would add about $1 million to our excess levy. So that would leave right now an unobligated balance of $1,006,296 that we could consider for anything that has been requested that has not been recommended. My recommendation would be, let's hold off until the fall town meeting, reprioritize the needs and see what would make sense to bring forward at that point in time.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Kazanovich. And there might be, when the warrant closes and we get a look at it, there might be items on there that require funding too. So that's not accounted for here. Any questions on that? Yes.
Ed, did we not recommend, or did you not recommend any of the 4 requested firefighter positions, or?
So what I failed to tell you is that we did fund 2 dispatchers positions for high impact time periods, okay? They're getting swamped. The call volume is up, they're getting swamped. So they're targeting and they're gonna restructure those shifts so it makes sense to have coverage at a time when the calls are heavy, statistically. Those positions are covered 100% by ambulance receipts. And I made that commitment with the understanding that hopefully over the next 3 years, we would wean it off ambulance receipts and pick up more of that share through tax levy. So it gives us some time to structure that.
Essentially, they asked for 4 positions, we're funding 2, but through ambulance receipts?
No, so the 2 were new
Okay, sorry.
dispatches. There were 4 firefighters that were requested. So I said, it's too early for me to commit any portion of, and really, when we were discussing the budget, I was looking at a whole, I wasn't looking at a surplus because I estimated the state receipts at 1.5%. I couldn't commit at that point in time. Number two, I think there was a board vote that allowed the fire department to go out and seek safer funds for 8 positions. So if those 8 or a portion of those 8 are awarded and granted, the first 3 years are covered through federal funds, including fringe benefits. So I wasn't in a position to commit that. It makes more sense to reconsider that in the fall after they find out whether or not the safer grant has been awarded or not.
Diane or Trevor, do you have any questions?
No, not at this time. No, I don't. Thank you.
Thank you.
Just to-
Yes, sir.
So on the, I guess the first page, other than the cover page, the FY '24, so you've got listed on that line for the excess or deficit estimated, the 1,006,296. How does that relate? So as I look at the previous years, those are all zeroed out, and then with ultimately how much of the 2.5 you utilized at the bottom. So can you just explain that?
So, okay, so if we used the 1.6 million, we would be taxing at a rate of 2.5. All right. Now, because right now we're not using the 1.6 million, I came off the 2.5, and that amount coming off would result in a level of taxation, not a 2.5, but 0.59%.
So what we'll see for proposed budgets for the departments will total up to less than, what number would it be? The 80,414?
So the departmental requests that are in your book total the top line under appropriation, 79 million.
Okay.
We have total revenue sources of 80 if we tax the full 2.5. So typically what we do is we come off 2.5 every year. We haven't taxed the 2.5 in 12 years. So either we continue that or we consider a use of that 1.6 million at a later date. Now, other things are going to be changing as we get into the fall. Estimated receipts are going to be known. There may be some excess there that would add to the 1.6 million. Our new growth, I estimated at, it was a little higher than 450. We use 500, so it's 50 above what we normally estimate. But I can tell you the new growth average has been about 750,000. So if we continue to trend that way, that's going to add to the 1.6 million as well.
All right. So let me reaffirm what you just said. So if we don't use that 1 million, 6,000, et cetera, we would be taxing at 0.59% of 2.5.
Currently, yes.
All right, thank you. All right,
One other thing that I'd
Yes.
like to mention, I said there were 2 recommendations that are not solidified. The solid waste, we try to recoup through user fees. So and we'll do an analysis on that, we do direct and indirect costs. If we're not recouping that cost through user fees, we would be seeking to amend those fees to at least capture or break even what our expenses are.
so there would be an increase on the revenue side
Because
there.
we shouldn't be subsidizing trash fees through level of taxation if 100% of our residents are not using the trash service, and they're not. Some are using, they privatize, they're getting it on their own. So they shouldn't have to subsidize if they're not getting a service.
Is that the same with sewer as well for, so residents, the same thing?
That's the same with sewer, that's the same with cable access, that's the same with Packagug Golf. Although those other 3 are true enterprise funds, trash is not an enterprise fund. But we look at it as though it's an enterprise fund. We treat it as though it's an enterprise fund. We capture all the expense, whether it's collection, whether it's disposal, whether it's recycling, whether it's special pickup, and then we add in the support cost in order to provide those services.
All right, thank you, Ed. So what we'll do today is look at some of the basic budgets, the ones that we really don't need the department heads in here for necessarily. And we're going to go by our, agenda. So let's look at the moderator first. That's right in the beginning. Town moderator, budget, department request, $296. Town manager recommendation, $296, and it's been that amount since at least fiscal year 2020 or before. Let me just, before we start too, just reiterate, just confirm with, Sharon that, what do? We can recommend, right? What are our options? Recommend?
You're recommending the town manager's recommendation, or you're not recommending?
That's it?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's not an, it's an article about the individual budget.
Okay. All right.
You can amend it, it may be different than the manager's
Right.
recommendation, but remember, it's the finance committee's recommendation that gets presented at town meeting.
Okay, thank you. So we have a moderator budget of town manager recommendations, $296.
Motion to recommend?
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to recommend. All in favor? Kevin?
Yes.
Ed?
Yes.
Mike?
Yes.
Diane?
Yes.
Trevor?
Yes.
And the chair votes yes. So that one's good to go. Next, we're going to look at the selectmen, the select board budget. The department request is $10,737, and the town manager recommendation is the same, $10,737, and that's a 0% increase to fiscal year 2023. And it's actually been, for fiscal 2023, it was that amount, and for fiscal year 2022. So this would be the third year at the $10,737.
Motion to recommend?
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second to recommend the select board budget. All in favor, Kevin?
Yes.
Ed?
Yes.
Mike? Diane?
Yes.
Trevor?
Yes.
And the chair votes yes.
Madam Chair, just one comment, just so the finance committee is aware of this, I'm sure you are. But there's a handful of positions that are elected positions that are presented under Article 2 at the annual town meeting. So Article 2 could override this if a suggestion is made to increase any elected official's wage. So, and at that point, we would suggest that we amend the budget to reflect the vote of Article 2.
Okay.
I don't ever recall that happening, but
It's not, okay. Possibility. All right, let's look at our finance committee budget next. The budget is, the department request and town manager request are the same, $1,015, and that's up from, it's the same as fiscal 2023. Any questions? It should be like two after, no, way in the beginning.
I think we skipped the manager's one.
Oh, it wasn't on the list, so I didn't know if you wanted to do it. We can come back to the manager, right after we do finance. So finance is right after town manager. That's okay. Oh, you're right, yeah.
And we didn't honor the request from the prior chair, Mr. Hussey, to put a pizza line item in here.
Yes, he always wanted us to have a food line. So it's not. Okay, so the department and town manager request are $1,015.
Motion to recommend?
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to recommend. All in favor, Kevin?
Yes.
Ed?
Yes.
Mike? Diane?
Yes.
Trevor?
Yes.
And the chair votes yes. Okay, so let's back up one from the Finance Committee and go to the town manager budget. Okay, and, the department requests $446,432, and that's the same as the town manager recommendation. It's an increase of 2.27% and an increase of $9,903.09. Do you want to, Mr. Kestner, would you tell us about the increase?
So, well, I could tell you, all the wages are contractual, and most of the expenses and supplies are fixed in nature. There is some discretionary flexibility in professional services, and that's kind of used as a catch-all. But as you can see, those costs have been pretty consistent, ranging from a high of 19.5 to 15.4. But there are some reoccurring costs in that line item that are going up as a result of the current economics. I did remove the ICMA annual conference. That would be a nice opportunity to go to, but quite honestly, my focus is more at the state level through the MMA Association. So I'm opting not to take advantage of that. I got too much to do here. I don't have time to travel and deal with other issues. Although, you know, I understand the networking and the concept behind that is very valuable to any community. And then our town audit, I level funded, and quite honestly, that may go up as a result of CARES and all the federal money that we received. But if that is the case, we have an opportunity to either cover it from within or do a supplemental appropriation at the fall town meeting.
Okay. Any questions?
Motion to recommend?
Second.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second to recommend the Executive Office of the Town Manager budget. All in favor? Kevin?
Yes.
Ed?
Yes.
Mike?
Yes.
Diane?
Yes.
Trevor?
Yes.
And the chair votes yes. The next budget we want to look at is the reserve fund. The reserve fund, the total department requests $310,000, and the town manager recommendation is $310,000. That's $250,000 in the reserve fund and $60,000 in the salary wage reserve. And of course, that's a lot less than last year, but we had money in there last year because there are contracts being settled. So that's not the case this year. Okay, any question on that?
Motion to recommend?
Second.
So we have a motion and a second to recommend. Okay, all in favor, Kevin?
Yes.
Ed?
Yes.
Diane?
Yes.
Trevor?
Yes.
And the chair votes yes.
Madam
Mike
Chair,
Marshall votes yes.
can I make one comment?
Sure.
I appreciate the vote. If you recall, we requested an increase in the regular reserve account to deal with the rising cost of everything. And we level funded that. That's one area that I'd like to target a percentage of operating revenue or operating appropriation. It's kind of like a benchmark going forward. So we have something adequate in reserve to address any unforeseen or any unexpected rising costs. I don't have a full year's history on that. Certainly, I'd like to maybe revisit that. That may be, it may be adequate. It may be shy. So it's something we may revisit. I think as a result of some of the transfers you just acted on most recently, you look at motor vehicle parts, supplies, things of that nature. They're already telling you they're going to be short. Now, we try to address that through the normal operating budget, but it's good to have a backup in the event we can't meet the demand for those costs. But I think we're good now, but I just wanted to let you know it's something we may revisit in the future.
Perhaps in the fall. Okay. All right, so that one's all set.
Michael, didn't
Oh, Michael.
I vote yes as well.
Okay, I'm sorry. All right. Okay, next, that's the Finance Committee Reserve. We'll look at the legal next. 151. Law Department. The department request and the town manager recommendation are the same, $145,000. And that's the same amount that was used that is present in the budget for fiscal year 2023. Anything to mention about this, Mr. Kazanovich, or?
Well, this can change overnight, as you are well aware. I think right now, given what I know, I think this would be adequate to meet general matters as well as any type of litigation we're dealing with. You got to remember, we do have insurance policy that will cover legal costs for cases that fall under the policy. Most of what you see here is matters that we have to deal with on a day-to-day basis. It could be personnel issues, it could be legal matters as it relates to legal review for a number of things. So I think, given the history, I mean, our three-year average is 142. The year before that, 105. I think we're going to be okay. And in terms of negotiator, a lot of that cost has to do with, is driven by our negotiations, and we've already negotiated all of our contracts. So, not to say that there aren't matters that are labor-related, because there always is, but at least a large chunk of that is already behind us, and we won't have to deal with for a couple of years.
Okay. All right.
So I think I've asked this before, so this is just based upon billable hours to our, have we ever thought of kind of two-faceted, either entering into a contract where they provide X number of hours for legal services? Obviously, if we went well above, the contract would have to have some flexibility, but would that protect us from those blips where we have a ton of billable hours and send us way over? And the second part is, are any municipalities, other than obviously like the city of Worcester, having their own legal counsel, town counsel as an employee of the department?
Great questions. I can tell you in the larger cities, they always have their own law department. I don't know of many towns our size, even larger, that they outsource all of their legal. I'm telling you, we're getting a bargain price from some of the big firms that are supporting some of the other municipalities. I don't think you're going to see anything better than this, quite honestly. That's something we have considered and we've often talked about. They may give you coverage up into a certain amount of hours at a certain price, but anything over that is billable. So they're going to track that. I think we're in a good situation right now.
It was more for the future. I just know from the agency I work for, probably went from having a staff of 4 attorneys to 20 attorneys in the last 2 years, just because of the complexities of so many things. And public records and request body cameras and
Right.
their policies. There's just so much now that sort of takes that sort of legal review that I wonder if at a point that we are getting beyond the hey, let me run this by you, I'm going to run this by town council, our contracted town council, if it's going to come to a point that bringing it in-house may be, and I'm sure you'll see it at the point where your billable hours start to go to here, that it may make more sense to just bring it in-house or look at other avenues.
I can tell you, we'll keep an eye on that and we will consider that as we move along. But I think right now we're getting a good bang for our buck.
The other thing I'll just say is I would be curious how much an in-house counsel could do that we're not currently doing. Like, I don't know if we're having every contract that we sign reviewed by outside counsel, or I assume we're not, but that's,
We are in a very litigious society, so we're always, cognizant of that. So those matters that really need legal review, we're not shy to ask for legal review because we know, well, it's right, there you go. We know what the potential liability could be if we trip over something.
All I'll say is just, I know that we're using more and more like software platforms, more and more technology contracts, and those are super complex. And while I'm sure our departments have a very good handle on the operational impacts, there are a lot of legal issues there too that I'm sure are hopefully being, like, you know, we're relying on the vendors to not have very vendor favorable contracts. And I don't, in my experience, that is not always the case.
Well, thank you for that feedback. I understand the concern and we're aware of that, so.
Yeah, the chair just, when the police department was here a couple weeks ago, they made reference to, you know, the agreements and the contracts and concerns over that the current provider, what was in there and would they be able to transition over, or could they lock them truly, you know, park into one little line in a contract and say, no, we're your sole provider and you're locked out of your systems, basically. So I agree with Mike when it comes to the tech contracts, they're ridiculous.
Well, not only that, but even with all of the phishing scams and all of that, really exposes us to a level of liability. We got to make sure that we're properly covered and that the vendor assumes some liability and safeguards the town in those areas where we may be vulnerable. Hi.
Any other questions? No. All right, so moving from the legal, the law, let's look at human resources.
I don't think you voted.
Oh, we did, and I beg your pardon. All right, so we're gonna, legal.
Motion to recommend?
Second.
Okay, we have a motion, a second to recommend the $145,000 budget. All in favor? Kevin?
Yes.
Ed?
Yes.
Mike?
Yes.
Patrick?
I'll abstain. I wasn't here for when he covered it. I'll start
Okay.
with the next one.
All right. Diane?
Yes.
And Trevor?
Yes.
And the chair votes yes. All right. So now we'll look at human resources. That's the next budget. The department request and the town manager recommendation are the same, $299,738. And that's a big increase from last year. I assume that we've reallocated some, or I think we added a position, did we not? Okay.
So that's a big number, and I don't want you to choke on that, but it deserves an explanation. So this HR director, assistant town manager is new to the department. So you're going to see a corresponding reduction under the finance department. It kind of moves it out of there into here, okay? Also, as a result of this, the HR study, we brought in a recommendation last year for this year, for a generalist, which had a start date of January 1. That generalist is not on board, but that $63,000 annualizes that position that you're committed to as a result of that study. And the reason the generalist is not on board yet, because I want to have the HR director on board to participate in the selection of that individual, since that individual will be working directly under her. Other than that, those are the two major changes within the budget.
Okay. I see that the miscellaneous supplies, medical exam and travel are the same. The clerical line is just about the same. And the, salary for the, so let me, I'm sorry to have to ask you. So we have an HR coordinator and an HR generalist?
So you got to remember, we're assuming the school department portion as well.
Okay. And we have someone for the, oh, nothing, all right, I'm all set. Questions?
clerical position is a part-time position, 9 hours a week, that supports our insurance claims as well as any workers' comp and IOD cases. And we're very fortunate to have her. The coordinator has been with us for a long time. Other than the normal change, and it's the HR generalist that morphs from the half position to the full.
You need more than 9 hours to be part-time?
Well, the individual, it's actually, it's a retiree. Yeah. Who supported that before, and she's very good at what she does.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to recommend this department budget at $299,738. All in favor, Kevin?
Yes.
Ed?
Yes.
Mike? Patrick?
Yes.
Diane?
Yes.
Trevor?
Yes.
And the chair votes yes. Okay, and let's look at town hall next. Which is just about three spaces down. The town hall budget, the department request and the town manager recommendation are the same, $52,500, and that's the same as the FY 2023 appropriation. And that includes the equipment maintenance and rental, miscellaneous supplies, building maintenance. Do you want to mention anything about this, Ed, or?
Yeah, I mean, the equipment maintenance and rental are pretty fixed. We know that there are leases on certain copies and things of that nature. I think the only volatile item that I would highlight here is building maintenance. We've had a number of issues recently that required a transfer into that account. We had a circulating pump go on our boiler. That cost about $5,000. We had a leaking pipe on our sprinkler system. Those are the kind of things that are tough to predict. So we level funded, fingers crossed, hoping that things will smooth out. And I think that's the importance of why I want to focus potentially on that reserve account, because it's in place in the event we are facing situations such as we did this year. Because a circulator pump is probably, happens every 5 years. It's not a reoccurring expense, so I hate to inflate that, knowing that it's a one-time cost.
Yep, that makes sense. Questions?
So that 17,000 really just covers your service contracts for elevators and sprinklers inspections and
Which line item is that?
the maintenance of itself. Is that really just covering that? And then anything they discover is probably above and beyond?
So the equipment maintenance basically is for copiers, elevator, things of that nature. The building maintenance would be monitoring our sprinkler systems and fixing things as they break. That's kind of there's some flexibility in that account.
Any other questions?
Second.
There's a motion and a second to recommend the town manager recommendation of $52,500 for the town hall line. All in favor, Kevin?
Yes.
Ed?
Yes.
Mike?
Yes.
Patrick?
Yes.
Diane?
Yes.
Trevor?
Yes.
And the chair votes yes. That's it for this
Madam
list.
Chair,
Yes.
one other thing. I don't believe, I just wonder, there are any capital items for those departments.
Okay.
But I think we try to address that as we,
There probably will. So we'll take a look. Records vault suppression system in fiscal 2026.
no, I think we're clear.
Okay. Mm-hmm. Can we look at, is tonight a good night to look at the town hall budget? Not the town hall, excuse me, general services? Did you want anyone to come in, or do you want to wait on that? You can wait if necessary.
Madam Chair, I would just like to wait only because if there's a uptick in utility in any way as a result of a global change, a crisis, then I think it will offer an opportunity to maybe modify this if we see an uptick or maybe something goes the other way.
Okay, that makes sense, thank you. So I think that's it for tonight's budgets, and, let's just talk about, meeting dates. We'll be able to meet on Wednesdays, we're meeting tonight, we're meeting on the 8th, we're meeting on the 15th, we're meeting on the 22nd and the 29th, those are all, Wednesdays in March, and we can meet on April 5th also. And that would be our last meeting. April 5th, we want to be looking at the warrant, and perhaps on March 29th, depending on when it closes and it gets to us. So in terms of the budget, we'll have public safety one night, correct? The department heads. We'll have schools, which would be our own schools plus Bay Path. And that's usually a little towards the end, isn't it?
So the schools, we hammered out a date with,
Oh, you did?
That'll be on the 22nd.
Okay, yep,
And that will give Bay Path the time to work through their process to get us something more concrete.
and they'll be here, probably?
We can invite them here.
That would be great, thank you. I think we do want to talk to them. Do we have anyone else scheduled?
I think then we can fill in the other holes. I'd like to have all the DPW divisions in on one night, which would include Sewer and Packagug. DDIS one night. But we would like to work with them and kind of fill in those holes. Now, that being said, I think we have enough time without that Saturday meeting that we proposed, because I would first. But certainly would like to keep that as an option if in fact if there's a snow day, if we fall behind. But maybe we focus on that towards the tail end of the process rather than on the 11th like we had suggested.
So maybe instead of having a meeting on March 11th, a Saturday, have one later in the month?
If it's needed. And I don't know how you all feel about that. I mean, I'm open. If there is a desire for a Saturday, that,
I think we'll have a forum, and I think people might have some conflicts, but we pretty much have a forum. Although, if everything goes smoothly, we'll be able to get this done within the next 4 meetings. So we'll have the library and the Council on Aging in, okay? And emergency management is public safety,
right?
and we still need to look at maturing debt and interest. CBA, that's gonna be under,
Yes,
okay?
I would say we would cluster the senior center, the library, the veterans agent, cable. They're all part of public service. Maybe they come in the same night as DDIS.
And,
But give us an opportunity to, I'll work with Sharon. We'll pull something together.
Sure.
We'll make sure the departments are available to meet those dates. And we can bring something in next week.
okay,
something definite.
all right. And you'll just send us an email so we know who's coming in a week, so that we can go through those budgets. And again, debt and interest, maturing debt, and pensions and benefits, we're gonna have to look at separately. I mean, there's no, you'll be the one explaining those to us. Okay. Questions? Yes, no? Diane, or Trevor, do you have any questions?
No.
No, not right now, thanks.
Okay. Well, that's it. Do I hear a motion to adjourn? Okay, let's do all in favor. Kevin?
Yes.
Ed?
Yes.
Mike?
Yes.
Patrick? Diane?
Yes.
Trevor?
Yes.
And the chair votes yes. Okay, well said.